So yeah, like I was saying, yeah, leaving California was actually really a kind of a weird sequence of events.
Yeah.
So I told you I finished the semester. Um, my mom was moving out of her house, which is the place I grew up. I grew up after 43 years
Wow.
because she'd been renting that spot, and this it's kind of a common story in San Francisco. Obviously there's been yeah. Again, I say a weird sequence. So the building that I grew up in was sold, right? And so the new landlords obviously uh, bought the building with the intention of making some money on it,
Yeah,
right?
especially in San Francisco. Yeah.
Yeah. So that yeah, that sequence alone was kind of weird. I mean, it was like the epitome of what has been happening in San Francisco. Just kind of these like, I don't know. I think the process was kind of cold.
Yeah.
Um, during the pandemic, they asked my mom if, to move. And I was like, yeah, okay.
Mm.
Again, not, I understand one side of it, but then there's just the humanity part that I couldn't get down with, where you're like, okay, this is an older woman who lives by herself, who's a diabetic, um, who is more prone
You're
to
catching the bird, right?
catching the virus.
Right.
So you're asking her to move during the pandemic? That makes no sense. I'm
Well,
like,
we live in a world, man. Like I've been I read a lot, and like when I listen to podcasts a lot more now than I listen to the radio, to be honest. But I've been listening to a lot and reading a lot, man, about how like companies are making people like evicting people, even though there's like a moratorium on evictions right now, or just being very, very cold for the bottom line. And I'm like, man, I understand you have a group of people, investors that you have to watch out for and all these things, man. But in a situation like that, man, like you're literally doing this because you know that San Francisco is, prime location for like Silicon
yeah,
Valley people, and they can come in and charge, millions of dollars for these places.
sure.
They're gonna go, man.
It's
You
gross.
know, yeah,
It's gross. So either way, moving her out was an interesting one because, one, I just felt like it was so representative of what I've seen happen for years.
yeah,
And so I guess it's a little different when, you're involved,
yeah,
right? And, being in school, you know this firsthand, man, you get, it's a commitment that you made, and you don't really have a lot of time for anything else. I would say not only time, but you don't necessarily have the emotional bandwidth as
yeah,
well, right?
yeah,
And so it was a weird, I talked about this on another podcast. It was a weird kind of saying goodbye to that house, right? So much had happened in that house. I mean, obviously since I grew up there, but just kind of strange, like leaving and getting on the plane. And when I got on the plane, that's when I really processed. Like I was sitting on the plane crying. Like
yeah.
I was definitely crying on the plane. Like, I'm not gonna see that place again, or I'm not gonna walk in that door again. You know what I mean? So yeah, that was a tough one. And so yeah, you were asking like why I'm in Virginia. Yeah, I was uncomfortable with the way these sanctions came down in San Francisco, California, shutting things down, stay at home orders. Like it was scary. It was very scary for me, especially, I'm an extrovert. I love people. Like I need people. I thrive off of people's energy. And when I don't get that, I feel it. I feel it in my body. I'm like, oh, things are off. And then you add on top like political division, racial tension. Where do I go with this? Like, where do I put this? You know what I mean? Or how do I have time? Because I committed myself to school,
Yeah.
right? Um, and being in a social work program, man, you're talking to. I mean, you're essentially learning how to meet the needs of some of the most marginalized and underserved communities, right.
I was having a conversation with my wife about it because my wife is a school counselor.
Oh, okay, great.
Yeah, and she was talking about how this generation of student
Hmm.
is going to have more mental health concerns
Oh man.
than any generation previously. And she said it's only going to, get worse as we move forward. You got a generation of students like my niece. I have a niece, she's 4, and she's, just starting school, and she started school in a pandemic, situation.
Yeah.
That's what they think school looks like. And luckily her school has been meeting in person. She's there in Virginia.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, but like so it's like, like we talked about, man, on one hand you have like the part where people go extremely too far trying to save lives. I get it,
Yep.
but like you said, it becomes very political by in nature, but then you look online and you see, everything is like a horror story when it comes to the pandemic. You never hear the success stories. You never hear the workers that are saving lives on a regular basis, or that you always hear, oh, LA County is the worst place to live in America, when it, like, that's what you hear. And I'm like, I don't know, man. It's a lot of millionaires that live there. I think they live a great lives.
That or the mention of people who are catching it and surviving
Yeah,
because there's a lot of people that are doing that.
yeah,
There's a lot of people who are catching it and and have minimal symptoms, and it's frustrating to me because I think we are touching on some of the points where we see that the same communities who have health disparities are highly affected, right?
yeah,
And so the narrative that we're told is like isolate, stay at home, wear a mask. And I'm
yeah.
like, well, okay, how about we talk about like how can you best like change your lifestyle? What can you do to support your immune system? How can you know what I mean? Like those stories would be helpful, right? Because those are the things we need to know, right? Like, but I don't want to go too far into it, but I totally agree with.
I mean, but I don't think you're going too far, man. Like me, I'm a professor at a university up here in Connecticut, at UConn,
Yeah,
and UConn has really gone above and beyond trying to protect our students and protect faculty. Everything from providing testing on campus. We can actually go to get tested on campus for free,
right.
to just overall just trying to look out for the student body. But it's been both a blessing because I know that they care about us.
Hmm.
But I work in a field, man, where I'm a musician. That's an in-person art form.
Yeah,
And I'm sitting here now planning my classes for the semester about how I'm going to perform with my students online.
yeah,
And I did that the first semester that the pandemic took hold. But it's like, man, you see the frustration of the student, like, okay, how many times can I play? Sending these videos in every week and sitting in these classes bored to death. And
yeah,
it's a struggle, man. Like, even for me, I'm a student just like you. And
yeah.
I'm laser focused on finishing this doctorate. So they can literally teach this thing outside in the street, and I'll be right there, taking my classes, man. But I'm one of those people, Joe, man. I was one of those super paranoid, scared everything. People get close to me, I'm like, back away. I was one of those people, man. And it took my wife like really stressing, like, Rick, I understand how you are, and that, like you said, being a people person.
Yeah.
But on the other hand, life is going to go on. So right. So it's like, how do we as musicians, make a living when your living is playing in clubs and playing in concerts and all? I did that for years, man, before I, got into teaching. So it's a struggle that I deal with on a regular basis, man. And then, like, you have these students graduating. They don't know what the heck they're going to do with this college degree they just paid hundreds of thousands of dollars for,
Yeah.
So that's a challenge I think so many people are facing, man. And I think it's something we just need to sit down and talk about together and come up with solutions.
Yeah, there's got to be some choice involved. That's that, like I said before, that's been the scary part. I think that we, as a whole, generalizing, we get really comfortable with this idea of like, the mama bear or, the government. Oh, they're going to support us. They're going to do what they need to do. And
Right.
we don't necessarily, and that's okay as long as you take the time to question what is happening.
Mhm.
So when I see someone saying, you can't leave your house. Okay, well, when it first started, I'm like, 2 weeks? I can do 2 weeks. I can stay at home. No problem. 4 months, 5 months.
Right.
Wait.
Right.
What the fuck is going on? Like,
Right.
what? There's no. I'm not seeing it. You know what I'm saying? And yeah, I think man. I mean, that's really one of the things that like kind of dawned on me, and why I wanted to talk to you, because not only are you in school, but specifically in music,
Yeah.
right? And I still haven't met a person to this day who's like, I hate music, right?
Right. Right.
There's a great Quincy Jones quote. Um, the two things you need in life are music and water,
Yeah.
and without them both, you're done, right? And I was like, damn, okay, yep, truth.
You know what's funny, man? It's funny you bring that up because I use that quote to start every. So when I taught at Prairie View A&M down in Houston,
Okay.
in Houston, and I taught a music appreciation course to students that weren't music majors.
Mm.
I would use that quote to start every single class. So I would always ask, it'd be a writing prompt or just to start a discussion like, hey, how many of you think you can live your life without ever hearing music ever again? And you got the big football players in the back. Like everybody think they're gonna be like the main one that's like, man, I'll be all right, I got football, whatever.
Yeah.
Usually the football players are the main people arguing of why music is so important to what they do.
Sure.
Whether it's a situation where you're like, you know what, man, like my story. My favorite song of all time. I'm a music historian. I'm a college professor of music. I studied classical music, all that. My favorite song of all time is Electric Relaxation by Tribe Called Quest. That's my favorite song of all time. I don't care where I am in life. I don't care what station, whatever. I am going to always go back to Electric Relaxation to calm me down, to get me hyped, to just put me in that place where I need to be. And it's because that song serves such an important role in my life, man. When I was first exposed to jazz music, and I'm sure all of our parents may have done this at some point. My mom had a membership to Columbia House Records. You get like 10 CDs in the mail. It's like for $1. Yeah, right. So my mom got these Columbia House CDs and she got all the music she wanted. But my aunt died in 1991.
Okay.
And I knew my aunt had died. Man, this story is going to go a weird place, but I knew my aunt had died before I even was told that she had died because my aunt came to me in a dream. I haven't told this story online too. It's kind of weird telling this story.
Love it.
So that's cool. So my aunt came to me in a dream, Joe, before I even knew she had passed away. And she was like, and in the dream, and I've studied about this too, because I can remember the dream vividly, even from 1991. She came to me in the dream and she was like, I love you, because I used to get picked on a lot for being dark skinned growing up and stuff like that.
Nope.
And she was like, I understand you deal with all this bullying and stuff, but you're gonna make something out of yourself. And I remember crying in the dream. And I was like, I want to see you again. I knew it. She was gone, man. And then the next scene was there was a little boy standing in my mom's other sister's living room playing the trumpet.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm sitting there like, okay, what's going on here? What's up with this?
Yeah.
And then that year, bruh, I started playing the trumpet in middle school. And so that was my exposure to music. And as I started getting into jazz and stuff like that, that was like my segue was listening to Electric Relaxation from Tribe Called Quest, because you got that lyric, that boom,
Oh yeah, man.
that groove and that smoothness, man. I was like, yeah, this is it. And so those two things spurred my love of hip hop and jazz music, man. And to this day, that's my favorite chart.
Dude, you beat me to the punch because that's what I was gonna go with. As we dive back in, like, where did that start? And I knew you were a trumpet player, and
Yeah,
started in a dream.
yeah.
Damn, damn. That's shit. I'm trying to conceptualize. Like, you saw, and then you saw a boy playing a trumpet. Right?
But I come from a musical family, man. Like my mother was in a gospel group with her sisters. It was called the Family of Joy. Stop. Oops. Let me grab this, Joe. Or is it? You hear my dog going crazy in the background here.
Want some attention?
Yeah. Can I pause it, man? Like, can we pause or do?
Do what you gotta do.
Is it gonna mess up like what you got going?
Oh man, go ahead.
Okay, hold on. See how smooth, man. Those are my two jams, bro.
So that was your man. Okay, so you started off. You started. Oh, you were saying that you come from a family of
Yeah, my mom. Yeah, my mom she was in a singing group, man. She was in a group with her sisters. It was called the Family of Joy.
family.
It's Family of Joy. It was a gospel group. So my mom, she sung with her sisters, and my dad comes from a super musical family as well. So I always knew music was going to play some role in my life.
Yeah,
I wasn't exactly sure what role it would be,
yeah.
but I never knew that it would be the way I make my living, as an adult. But I always knew it would serve some role, and it did, man. It became the main thing in my life, man, for a long time. I remember, you know, I was a wrestler in high school. I wrestled on the wrestling team,
Yeah.
and I wasn't an exceptional student, man. I just wasn't.
Mm,
I was one of those people. I come from a generation where they taught one way. If you didn't just let somebody lecture to you and learn that way, then you got written off. Oh, he can't do it. And I'm a visual learner, man. I learn with my hands. I learn with examples, and they didn't teach like that back then. So it was one of those things where I just had to learn how to learn, and learn how to become who I would become. And I think back on all the teachers that told me, "Oh, you'll never amount to be anything." My fifth grade teacher, Miss Pittman, she knew I would get in trouble with my parents, so she would call my house like every week to make sure I got in trouble.
mm,
That type of stuff, man. Like,
yeah.
these are supposed to be educators, people that's supposed to be on your side, but instead it's people that want to break you down and want to see you fail just because you make their lives a little more difficult than what it should have been.
Yeah.
So that was my experience, man, and I excelled at music and nothing else.
Well, I think that's why people like you and I, well, you're already there. I know that I work with college students now, and
Yeah,
as part of my internship. But I think it's people who are pursuing their education who really who've had a bad experience. Kind of that's our job, right? We've
yeah,
experienced what it's like to be in those classrooms where it's one way or the highway, right?
yeah,
It's not about driving curiosity. It's just
right.
learn this information just so you know it. And yeah, I think that in as I kind of I have conversations with like older adults, and I listen to their educational experiences. I think they're maybe fitting for the time,
Yeah,
but as we've developed and as time has passed, we're dealing with a different type of a person, right?
yeah,
We're dealing with a more curious person, and trying to understand the concept of like why,
yeah,
right? That's when I work with students. I want them. It's not about. It's less about the material. It's more about like falling in love with the process of learning, right? Once you can get to that point, then it's like, oh, you can get what you can take what you want out of the material, right?
yeah,
And that's the part that's been a struggle. Not only for me. I mean, it sounds like you too, right? You have to get that teacher or that person who encourages that.
yeah. My man. So my ninth grade math teacher
Mm,
is the lady that changed my life, bro. I was never good at math ever. Her name was Miss Iva Faust. People from Portsmouth will know the Faust family because it's a family full of teachers. Her husband taught my dad when he was in high school, like that type of thing.
Shout out to P10.
Yeah, man. So Miss Faust changed my life, man. Miss Faust was one of those teachers. She was extremely tough, bro. Like she just didn't take any junk from anybody.
Mm-hmm.
But she was one of the most compassionate people I've ever met in my life. Mm. And so my 9th grade year, man, I had completely I was like, man, this school thing is a wash. I'll never be good at it. So whatever. So I would go to Miss Faust's class and I wouldn't pay attention. I would be in there beating on the desk, making beats up in my head and stuff. I got like a full symphony going on in my head and she's up there trying to teach me algebra. So, so Miss Faust called my mom and was like, I got an idea. I want to try to work with her. Hmm. So what Miss Faust would do is every day she would do a compromise. She was like, Ricardo, if you come in here and do your work today, I will let you make beats and stuff here in class. So what she would do is every day she would put on at the very beginning of class, I Believe I Can Fly by Robert R. Kelly. I know we can't talk about R. Kelly.
Man, you talk about whatever
you want. Right. But she would put this song on every day and I was able to put some type of beat behind the song itself. Hmm. So every day I'm composing, I'm writing something every single day. And in turn, I had to do my work that day. Sure. And what I figured out from that was 2 things. A, I had a talent in music, that I didn't know I had, which was writing music, but also that I could do anything I actually put my mind to. And that comes from this lady who could have wrote me off just like every other teacher I had. Spending the time to say, I want to do something to save this kid's life. And it's because of Miss Faust, man, that I went on. From that point forward, I made good grades in school. I applied to college my senior year. I got into 2 schools, and I decided to go to Norfolk State. And it was the best decision I've ever made, bro. It propelled me to where I am today.
Man, I just had a podcast episode with Mark Anthony Tynes.
Yeah.
And we had a similar kind of moment. And, he described this moment of going to like a store. I think I forgot what year in school he was. But this really solidified his decision to go to Norfolk State.
Yeah.
He had come from Denver, Colorado, didn't know anyone on campus, similar to me coming from San Francisco and not knowing anyone on campus and just being like, okay, well, you have to develop a community some way, right? And I think he said he was in Maryland somewhere and he was in a store and he saw someone that he recognized, but he never talked to them. You know what I mean? He never really talked to them on campus, but when he saw them in the store in Maryland, it was so natural for him to go up to the person and be like, "Oh, hey, what's going on, man? You go like and that's what solidified this idea of family to him. Yeah. And he was like, "Yeah, no, I swear to you, like," and this isn't specific necessarily to Norfolk State. I think this is a lot of historically Black colleges, right? Yeah. It is very much so a family-centered community, like learning institution.
Yeah.
And so I would say that's one of the more unique things, but I feel the exact same way. I just, when people ask me about that experience or when I'm telling them about that experience, yeah, I really sum it up. I have not a clue what life would be. Not to say life wouldn't go on, but yeah, I mean, I attribute a lot of my success to going to Norfolk State and developing those strong relationships. I mean, one of the first, Portsmouth, Virginia will always be like a really special place to me. Not necessarily just for the location, but from the people. Right. When I first got to Norfolk, one of the first people that kind of welcomed me in were we're all cast from Portsmouth.
Yeah.
Like, yo, I was like, damn, y'all are some cool. Y'all are like really welcoming people. You know what I mean? And I'll never forget that. Just being like, oh damn, like people used to ask me, or like, are you from Portsmouth? And I was like, nah, but I just I hang around a lot of people from Portsmouth, and um, yeah, dude, that's dope. So you picked up the trumpet. Were you in band in high school?
Well, I was in band. So I started band in sixth grade, 1993.
Yeah, okay.
And I was in band sixth, seventh, and eighth grade. We moved my eighth grade year to the other side of town. So I ended up transferring schools. But I stayed with it, man. And then my I was just like every other kid, man. I wanted to be popular. So when I went to high school, I played football my first year, man, instead of doing marching band. I was like, yeah, I want to play football. I love football, and I had the aspiration. I wanted to be the next Barry Sanders. Always wanted to play running back. So when I got to high school, man, I was like 5'7", 180 pounds. So I was like, yeah, man, I'm gonna play running back. I'm gonna be the next Barry Sanders. So I go to football practice the first day, and I realized that our team wasn't very good. We sucked. We didn't win a game at all that year. But also, I was one of the bigger guys on the team, even at 5'7", 180 pounds. So instead of letting me play running back, they put me on the offensive line, and that was like the worst thing. I was like, I just don't want to do that. I started, and I played well, man, but it just wasn't for me. So by the end, I had lost all my ambitions to want to be a football player. So what I started doing was, after football practice was over, I would go over to the marching band field and try to, just see what they were doing over there.
Yeah.
So I got back into, I stayed in music. I was in the concert band, but I started marching my sophomore year in high school. And I was in band all the way through high school. I was all district player, all state. I did all that. And I made a decision my senior year. That's what I wanted to do, man.
Sure.
And best decision I made.
What's the what is the like what's the historical significance of the band? Where did like, for whatever reason, I don't know enough. Does it come from like is the marching band come from like military? Does it come from where did that concept come from?
Well, obviously, yeah, the marching part of it came from the military, as far as the regimented moving of the feet and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But the history of band and, community, you have community bands all around the world for, hundreds of years. You think about African American tradition of marching band, you got to go to New Orleans there. You talk about the brass band, you talk about, the whole Mardi Gras thing and that the performance aspect of what we do. Because obviously there's different styles of marching band. Norfolk State, we do the high knee lift, the high step, but I also marched drum and bugle corps, where we did the more, rolling of the feet, the faster marching style, and that type of uniformity of that. So it's different areas of marching band, and it's different styles, but it's also different approaches and histories along those lines.
Sure. So where do you how does that work within? I'm sure there's probably a lot more context and a lot more detail within that community. Um,
Mm-hmm.
How do you I've always been fascinated by it. I enjoy it. I mean, that was my first exposure to like marching band, right? Like a black marching band. I don't even think I really had much exposure to a marching band in California, and specifically in San Francisco. I think there was like one school. There was one school who had a marching band, but I just wasn't paying attention to it, right?
Yeah.
Um,
But different parts of the country have different, forms of march band and different levels of talent and stuff. Like, I lived in Texas, man. Texas is like the mecca of marching band, period. And like,
Interesting.
you look at, like, it's gonna be weird, man, but you look at like the two places where marching band is the biggest for the core style part of it.
Yep.
And that's Texas and Indiana. Sometimes Florida, and you got, different bands sprinkle around the country, but Texas and Florida and Indiana are like the two places where it's the biggest.
Mm.
And you think about the show style, and the, what we do as far as the more high stepping and dance and have a good time, what that is, what our college experience was with band. That's biggest in the South. So you have like the SWAC conference.
Mm-hmm.
It's like the major, conference for show style band, and then we came from the MEAC. The MEAC was good as well, but
Mhm.
like the main one that everybody knows is like the SWAC. And now that FAMU and Bethune-Cookman went to the SWAC,
Yeah,
it's going to be the one that everybody looks at.
absolutely.
So and the history that those institutions, Southern University, FAMU, and all these schools that not only created this Black tradition of band, but also these great leaders that we look at today as being like the pillars in the Black community. Martin Luther King went to an HBCU. All these great people went to HBCU. So it's definitely a situation where these things play such a huge role in not only our musical lives, but just the lives of being Black people in America.
Yeah. And so what? Yeah. How do you rate a band? I was always fascinated by this when you have like events like Battle of the Bands, where you have
Yeah.
all of these universities, all the bands representing their universities, right?
Yep.
And then they're judged, right? And so I guess there's probably a little bit on maybe the tightness of formations, and then
Well, it depends. So like with it, like once again, it's the different styles, right? So when you went to a marching band, Battle of the Bands at Norfolk State, that is completely different than the ones we do in like the show style, I mean the core style world.
okay.
So like in the core style world,
And when you say
everything is judged. Everything.
okay, when you say core, what do you mean?
So core style refers to the style of marching. So
Oh,
that's the rolled feet, and things of that nature.
okay,
More militaristic in its approach.
okay,
But so that style, so it's two different styles. You have the core style, which is that style of marching, and then you have what's called show style, and that's what you think of when you look at schools like Norfolk State, Southern University, Bethune, and those with the high step it, the more show style of approach to band.
okay.
So in the core style side, it's very regimented. Every single thing is judged. Everything from even down to your show concept itself. Does it make sense? Is it effective?
Yeah.
Like everything is judged, and they have sheets with how you're going to be judged and the different scores you'll get based on your execution and your planning.
Hmm.
Whereas when you go to that same, like we said at the HBCU, you go in that gym battle,
Yeah.
it's just a dog eat dog type thing, man. Like favoritism definitely plays a role. There's no way you're gonna be able to say that group was better because the people that went to the other school are always gonna find something that they liked
Yep.
better than what you did, or in their mind it's just like I just refuse to say that your band is better than mine. So, nope, not saying it. You know,
Yeah.
I like both, to be honest, man. I like both. I like being able to love my university and support it the best I can.
Yeah.
I also like being able to plan something and work my hardest at putting it on the field
Mm.
and being rewarded by other individuals that say, you know what, you did that better than the other group.
Yeah. So, so my next question is, when you've had the opportunity, because the bands, when you talk about participating in the band in Norfolk State, and I don't know what your experience was in high school, I think that those are very like people that don't go to historically black colleges are not affiliated with those communities, right?
Right,
Don't really understand that culture, right?
right,
And I would say, like, specifically as we talk about exposure, right? Most of the time when I meet people who are not black or who have never heard of it, and then they see it or they hear
right.
it, they're like, "Man, this is man, what? This is rocking." You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah,
Different than maybe a more traditional marching band that you would see if you went to University of Alabama.
right,
You know what I mean? Like it's got a cool essence to it.
right.
Right? There's something very cool about it. And so, what's been your experience with that when you like when people know that you've been a part of it, and they're like, "Yeah, damn, this is cool." Like, have you had to explain? Do you have to explain this, or no?
Yes and no. I think it like so. Like I'll give you a prime example, man. Um, when we were in college, I would go to participate in drum and bugle corps during the summer.
Okay.
And when I would come back the following after the season was over, I would always be like 40 pounds lighter and extremely, extremely dark because, we're outside working every day and that, burning all that fat, but we're outside in the sun. So, and so I would always have to explain to like friends and everybody like what I had done all summer.
Yeah.
And when I would go to the drum corps, I was like, yeah, I go to an HBCU. And it was always, man, that's so cool, man. I think what it is, man, that people find so cool about it is the fact it's identifiable.
Oh.
It's not necessarily this super artistic expression of what marching band is. That's like what you would see, like maybe in a drum corps show. It's we're playing James Brown. I see James Brown. I hear James Brown. I can identify with it because I know this music.
Yeah.
And I think it serves that role to a lot of people. And then a lot of people just recognize it's difficult, man. Like I challenge some of your listeners to go and just high step and just try to sing or talk while high stepping, man. Like how challenging that is to do. And then you have like this community, man. Like on one hand, you have a lot of people that appreciate it.
Yeah.
But then, Joe, there's a bunch of people that are on that other side, in that other style, that look down on it, man, as being less than. And so that's why I say I think it's both sides, because we also have to fight to legitimize in some people's opinion of what we do on the show style, because they look at the core style as being better than, and I think that breaks down to a couple of things. I think race definitely plays a part in that, because I mean, let's be honest, the show style side is usually dominated by African Americans and people of color.
Yep.
And the core style side is usually dominated by a majority white audience and participants. So, I think that's a huge part of it. But I think the other part of it is, there have been experiences on the show style side where, people aren't necessarily worried about trying to be the most, oh man, I want one ensemble quality on the field. I just want to get young people off the street. I'm not trying to be, the New York Philharmonic. I'm trying to save Joe or Rick from this life of pain and suffering in the community. So instead of them going down this path of getting into drugs and things of that nature, let me put a trumpet or a bass drum or, in this kid's hand or a flag and save this kid's life.
Sure.
That's the part that never gets talked about in that conversation, man. And that's in my research and stuff, what I've really tried to do when having discussions about the show style,
So listening to you talk reminds me of the movie Drumline, right? Which is hilarious. So back, I don't know if I really got down with Drumline. Like I thought I appreciated it because it told a story that wasn't often told in mainstream. You know what I mean? Like, so in that sense, I'm like, oh, you're promoting an art, right?
Yeah.
And then you add the Hollywood into it, right? Because like I wasn't in band, but like I was looking at it, I'm like, oh yeah, I guess this isn't really what it's like.
At all. So look, man, funny story. Drumline came out in 2002.
Okay.
I went to the movie theater with a bunch of my band friends, and we watched this movie. And I swear to God, we all enjoyed the movie because it depicts somewhat the HBCU band world, and it's good to see any representation of a community that you're involved in on the movie screen. But we're all sitting there like, man, I can't believe they put this mess out. Talking about this is what an experience like.
Yeah.
Like think about it like your own experiences, man, being on campus. You see the band, like we right in the middle of campus.
Yeah.
And I remember being on the field and seeing like our frat brothers behind us, like, man, I want to be over there with them. And I'm watching them, and they're up there hopping to what we're doing on the field, like all the time.
Yeah.
So it was like those two communities mixed, but like the wearing black and white. We absolutely did that at Norfolk State. When I was a rookie in the band, we wore black and white. When I was a rookie in the band, we moved in early for band camp. So there are a lot of nuggets in the movie that are true, but they're definitely sensationalized to make a movie, man.
Yeah.
But it's funny to me how timeless that movie is, because even to this day, people reference that movie. Like Nick Cannon, man, he's probably still making millions of dollars off of that movie, man.
Yeah. No, I mean, look, I haven't thought about that movie in a while until this conversation, but I'm
Right.
like, oh damn, yeah, they did come out with that movie. I think there was actually a second one, but I never watched that one. So
Yeah, it was terrible.
it was,
It was terrible. Yeah, you don't need to see that one, dog. Just let it go.
so yeah, so you have this experience, and I guess at this point during college, you're did you already know you were gonna pursue music forever? Like this is
In
it?
college?
Yeah, in your undergrad.
Yeah, man. I picked my major immediately. I didn't do the whole, year of deciding. I knew exactly what I wanted to do. But it was an easy decision for me, Joe. Like my senior year, it was like I had a decision to make. Like I said, I wrestled in high school and I played the trumpet.
Yep.
And I was good at both. But it was like, look, do I want a career in the WWE or do I want to try to get something a little more realistic?
Uh-huh.
So I made that decision my senior year. I'm going to pursue this music thing straightforward, nonstop, relentlessly, and I did, man. So when I got there, Dr. Sanford, who was our band director, we're still good friends to this day. Dr. Sanford used my talent as soon as I walked in the door because I was literally in every single ensemble.
Yeah.
like I don't know if your listeners know like the life of a music major, but like your average person takes 2 or 3 classes and that gives them a full-time load.
Okay.
A normal semester for us, man, was a 10 class load.
Mm.
So it was nothing for me, man, to have like 3 or 4 classes a day.
Yeah.
And only be still like a 15 credit hour student.
Damn.
Like being stretched so wide, man. And then on top of that, I'm trying to do my own thing. I was gigging outside of school, playing with different bands in the area, and just trying to make money, man. As a broke college student, and then I picked up a job because I needed money, so I picked up a job working at a music store.
Yep.
Mars Music was my first job I ever had, man, working at a music store.
Sweet.
So, I was juggling all these things, man, and just trying to make it, bro. That's the story of so many of us, man. You put in a situation, you just want to make it, and you'll do whatever it takes to do that, man. And that's what I did, bro.
Yeah. My pursuit to serve college students is because I think that so many times we misidentify college students.
Yeah.
Right? We think, oh, well, you're pursuing your education. That means that you have wealth, or education and wealth are resources, or it's synonymous. It's like, no, man, you got a lot of people that are coming in with debt. They've already entered into debt. They didn't have money to begin with.
Yep.
Now they're taking more debt on because there is value in education. There's absolutely value in education. But oftentimes, I think just we're generalizing, and I think as a society, we just for some reason college just washes away all your problems. I'm like, no, like that. I would argue that it increases some of your problems.
Yep. Well, I remember it like it was yesterday. I remember my first semester on campus.
Yeah.
My dad gave me $20. He dropped me off on campus, and he was like, "Graduate." And my parents helped me out the best that they could financially, but those student loans and scholarships got me through school. And
absolutely.
I remember my first semester, man, was walking in front of the old student union building, the old white building.
Yeah.
And they were having like a college day / fair or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And I just so happened to walk up to this table, and it was a credit card company.
Mm.
And I was like, man, I'm a broke college student. I could use some money, but I know I don't have credit, so whatever. And the person talked me into applying for a credit card. I was like, man, you can't be walking around campus with no money. I was like, you know what? You're right. Let me apply for this credit card. You're right. So I applied for this credit card, bro. I don't have nobody's job, no nothing. Not only did I get approved for the credit card, they sent me 2 credit cards.
Oh, shit.
I'm like, oh, hell no. I'm rich.
Right.
My credit card had $500 limits. I had $1,000 free money, not knowing that, hey, you got to pay this money back.
Oh, yeah.
So I spent these credit cards up. I got the new Jordans. I had on the Jabot jeans. I had on everything, man. I was RP55, all that. I was rocking. And then that first credit card bill showed up at my mom's house. And she was like, what the heck is this? Man, completely destroyed my credit, brother.
Oh,
Completely destroyed it. And it took me years to rebound from those being preyed on by a credit card company. No, I didn't have a job. I told them up front I didn't. And they still send me 2 credit cards.
oh yeah.
You know, so on top of trying to get an education, on top of, you know, being a black man trying to, you know, be successful in America, now you got credit card companies preying on you. You got creditors calling you nonstop trying to get their money back, and fees upon fees. So next thing you know, you had $1,000 in credit, but you owe them $5,000 with no job.
Absolutely.
So it's like, you know, I had to do something, man. And, you know, that music job helped me, man. That gigging helped me in those years. Just trying to rebound, man, really taught me a lesson about money that I didn't know, man. Like, look at all these experiences you get, bro, just from a college experience, even though, you know, being a poor kid from Portsmouth, just trying to make it,
Yeah.
you know. And I was lucky, too, because my sister was accounting major.
Oh, okay.
So she's the one that really helped me dig out of that hole, man. And now I have financial literacy that I can pass on to my kids. You know, don't do this, don't do that. And that's so many lessons that our parents didn't get, you know. So yeah, it's just interesting. We all have interesting stories that usually have a lot of similarities.
Oh, totally. The more I hear you talk about the gig,
Mhm.
kind of like this gig economy, right, which is so natural for a musician.
Yeah.
That's all that's being reflected right now outside of totally outside of music, right? Like we're really entering into everyone having like kind of 3 or 4 side hustles.
Yep. Yep.
And this idea of working somewhere for 20, 30 years, you pretty much throw that out the window. Like that is not going down.
Well, I'm gonna be honest with you, man. I'm just gonna be honest. I'm a college professor, man, and I over the winter break picked up a part-time job working at Amazon.
Yeah.
Any type of teaching I could do on the side, I did. You know, it's just the life we live, man. Like people, like you said, people think you're living this extravagant lifestyle just because you either teach at or went, go to college. You're not, man. And then the other part of that for me was I just wanted to do my part to give back in this time of pandemic.
Absolutely.
So many people that rely on these services. I'm like, man, shoot, I'm sitting here at a computer teaching. In my free time, I can go out and be helpful and be responsible. Let me help deliver packages that could be life-saving medications to people, man, or whatever that may be. I wanted to do my part.
Yep.
The financial side didn't hurt, but I wanted to do something to affect the lives of people. I've always carried myself that way my whole life, man.
Yeah.
You know how people always talk about, man, if I hit the lottery, I'm gonna buy this and that and this and that. I'm like, man, if I ever hit the lottery, I'm gonna change so many lives because that's what I want to do.
I mean,
that's my personal moment.
That's what you're doing now as an educator, for damn sure. And
Yeah,
as I reflect on kind of getting to know you, I distinctly remember you being so like highly involved in music, in band, right? Like, and being very vocal about your passion for music, right? I can't think of a time where music wasn't in the conversation. Like,
I mean, think about the parties we had back in the day and stuff, man, and how many I sacrificed going to because I knew I was in school, man. Like I always, that, man, I always had that type of personality. Like I was, I don't drink, I don't smoke, like, so that part was not hard for me to not do. But on the other hand, there was a lot of social events and stuff that we did back in the day that I just didn't participate in because either I was on the road doing music or about to do music, or thinking about doing music. Like I was laser focused on what I wanted to do with my life, man.
Sure.
And you said this earlier, man, being able to implant that passion into students, man. I that's one of the hardest parts of our job, but it's also one of the most rewarding.
Mm-hmm.
I can only teach from lived experience,
Yeah.
So when a student tells me, "Oh, Mr. Brown, man, it's you don't understand. you weren't, you don't understand what I'm going through. And I'm sitting there like, dude, if only you knew.
Oh, yeah.
If only you knew.
Like, sit down. Let me fucking
Right.
you know what the fuck I know.
Exactly. I did try to do that on top of, in college. I was active in SGA. Like I was senior class business manager my senior year. I was active in the fraternity. I was fraternity finance, keeper of finance, and then I was the fraternity president, and all these different things I was doing on top of trying to maintain a high GPA, and I remember, Joe, man, I graduated from undergrad with a 3.7.
Damn.
And I remember being pissed, bro. I remember being pissed that I didn't get a 4.0, man. And when I went back for my master's, Joe, the same thing happened to me, man. I took a class. I was 0.025 away from a 4.0 GPA. I cried like a baby to my theory teacher, like, Miss Fool, can you please give me the A+ instead of A-? And I absolutely deserved that A- because it was the hardest class I've ever taken in my life.
What class?
But I worked my butt off and got the A-, and I cried like a baby because I wanted that A.
What?
And it got my GPA to a 3.95. I was like, oh my God, Miss Fool, please.
Do you remember what class it was?
It was 20th century music. So in this class, man, it takes everything that's happening. So music theory from like the Renaissance period to, let's say, the late 1800s.
Yep.
In the early part of that, it was developing. It was becoming what it would be. Okay. And then you get to a period we call the common practice period. That's where you have like the defined theory that everybody used for hundreds of years.
Gotcha.
As you get to like the 20th century, everybody is trying to find ways to do something different. Like, I just want it different. It can't be what they did before. So you have all these different techniques that people were using. And to be honest with you, bro, some of this music is so difficult to listen to. You just be sitting there like, what the hell is this? This is not music. Like, people just playing random notes on a piano and all this stuff. I'm like, man, like literally music that sounds like this. Oh, my wife unplugged my piano.
I was gonna say yes. Let me.
Yeah, I'm gonna play. Look, I can plug it in. Check this out, man. Like music that sounds like this. Man. Like we would literally, it's called a 12-tone row. That's what this style of music is.
12.
So it's a very 12-tone row. It's a very mathematic music. So the music has to equal like a mathematic level in order to be considered 12-tone row. And then they have like different forms of like hexachords, which is 6 notes here, 6 notes here, and so forth. So like you literally listening to music that sounds like this. And Ms. Boone is sitting there like, okay, analyze that. Huh? And I'm sitting there like, oh my God, man. Like, tell your audience, if you guys want to hear some weird stuff, man, go look up 12-tone row. And there's an artist, man. I always played this in my first class. It's a composer named Milton Babbitt.
Milton Babbitt, okay.
Milton Babbitt, he was one of the first like classical composers to really use synthesizer. So he has a piece called Music for Synthesizer, Song for Synthesizer. It's like 16 minutes long of just weird stuff like that, different like weird sounds and stuff. Like, you listen to music, man, you want to hear like different chords and stuff. Like you want to hear that type of stuff. But instead you get, and I'm sitting there like, this is the worst thing I've ever heard in my life, man. But you had to study it, man, because you have to be able to, a lot of things we study as musicians is not to really teach you how to do it. It's not necessarily, but it's teach you how to understand it and then how to appreciate it. You know what I'm saying? And
yeah.
That's the reason why, like, people ask when they're in college, why are they making me take these humanities courses?
Sure.
Why do I need to take a music course if I'm a finance major? It's because most business deals aren't done just in the boardroom. Some are done on the golf course. Some are done over dinner. Some are done in the living room of someone's house.
Sure.
And that could be done just by simply having a conversation about Beethoven.
Right.
You're a finance person, but you know about Beethoven's Fifth? Hey, let's talk about that.
Yeah.
And that builds that relationship. It shows that you're a cultured individual that can handle, those type of situations. And, obviously that doesn't work in every situation, but being able to have that knowledge is important.
Yeah. That
So, yeah.
so yeah, it's interesting. So I've come to appreciate more challenging music
Yep.
as I've gotten older and exposed to more challenging music. So when you were playing that, you know, that is a challenging sound as opposed to like the latter like chord that you were playing. When you're a chord, you're like, oh yeah, okay,
Yep.
that's nice to listen to. You're like, yeah, I can get down with this.
Yep.
Oh, that's interesting. So what is it like? Yeah, it's so
Well,
fascinating.
let me give you an example of that, Joe. So, like, check this out, man. It's just on piano. So I'm playing C, D, E, F, G, A, B. All right, so I can play all those notes together like that. And it's a very dissonant sound. There's a lot going on there. But if I separate those notes to this, exact same notes, yep. But because I spread them out, it gives you a much different sound.
Absolutely.
All right, so going from, and you might even like that. I like that. That doesn't bother me. But because those notes are so close together, it can be a challenging sound to most people that aren't, musically literate on what that is. Yeah. But by spreading it out and playing it in a different way, yeah, there's a resolution out of distance. And to me, that's the cool part about music, is being able to make beauty out of something that may not always be considered beautiful, man.
Oh man, absolutely. Like, I mean, one of the best things that I've, as I started DJing, and I DJ mostly electronic music, but electronic, not the mainstream, very harsh, heavy bass line.
Yeah.
I DJ, a lot of house music with a lot of there's there's influences from gospel, there's influences from jazz, there's influences from classical music.
Yeah.
But having to listen, just DJing had forced me to listen to music differently.
Yeah.
Like, I was like, oh damn, I've never listened to music like this before. Like actually listening and hearing like the details.
Yeah.
Like the details in the music is what's so impressive to me. I'm like, damn, like I can't help but think about the person who made it or the people who made it. And I'm like, oh, like I'll hear a sound, I'll hear a note, and I'm just like, you mother.
But you know what's crazy, bro? You can always tell a DJ that is a student of the craft, or a DJ that's a good musician, because pitch is a big part of DJing.
Sure.
So like, if you hear a DJ, they'll like be doing a mix, and they'll be playing Mary J. Blige's "Real Love," and then they'll play something that is in a completely different key that's so bad that it doesn't even make sense, but they're laying them on top of each other. Mm-hmm. I'm like, dude, what the heck are you doing? Listen to the pitch. Right? So it definitely makes sense.
No,
so I'm just like, man, being a student of your craft, man, that is definitely, and I guess that's another conversation, Joe. Like, an archaeologist doesn't become an archaeologist by just studying in the classroom. Sure. There's a lot of research. There's a lot of different things that they have to do outside of just being in the classroom and waiting for the teacher to tell them everything. Yeah. That will make them great at what they do. Absolutely. You didn't become a good DJ by just sitting at home and watching YouTube videos. No. And there's so many in our generation, and in the new generation and old, that waited for everybody to tell them what to do before they went out and stepped out on faith, man. Sure. And I'm guilty too, Joe, man. When I graduated from college, my first job was playing trumpet at an amusement park. Okay. Up in Allentown, Pennsylvania. I moved to Allentown. I was playing at Dorney Park, man. I played 6 shows a day. So we did like this boogie band show where we would walk around the park and play for like different people and stuff. Yeah. And then at night, we would do 3 stage shows. I'd be up on stage, man, playing on stage, having a good time. And I loved the job, bro. I loved that job. I was like, this is what I want to do. So 2 of the guys that I was in the band with, we would go to New York every weekend or every other weekend. We'd try to get to New York, just to gig in New York, man, because I was like, this is what I want to do for a living. The problem with that, man, is I was scared, because sometimes, Joe, we'd be making so much money, man, I was fine. I was able to buy a new car while I was there. Like, I was living okay. But then there'd be some months, man, where I would literally make $500 for the month.
Yeah.
And I'm like, man, where the hell is my food gonna come from?
Sure.
And at this time, I was staying in an apartment with 6 other people.
Of
I
course.
was literally sleeping in the living room. My bedroom was the living room.
Yeah.
So I'm like, okay, I love this gig. Like, this is what I want to do, man. But I got scared. I got this college degree. Let me, I want to have health care and I want to have this. So I got scared, man. I moved back to Virginia and I took a job as a middle school band director.
Mm.
And I don't regret it that I got stability in my life, but I regret the fact that I didn't really pursue my dream at the highest level that I should have to really make it work.
Mm.
My dream was I want to graduate from college. I'm moving to Philly. I want in New York, in between Philly and New York, because I want to play trumpet for Music Soul Child and Jill Scott. That's
right.
That's what I want to do.
Yep.
And that didn't happen. But I made a lot of great friends. Some of whom I still talk to. I got a lot of great experiences, and I can honestly say, man, that for a year of my life, I tried to make it as specifically a trumpet player.
Those
And
experiences. See,
I got a chance to play with Brandy. I got a chance to play some gigs for NASCAR. I got a chance to play for a lot of I played with the Houston Symphony. I played with the Virginia Symphony, Virginia Beach Symphony.
Mm.
Like I played the trumpet in a lot of different places. Played with a group from home called the O Band. Played with a whole bunch of different groups, man. And I have a lot of great life stories that I can pass on to my kids when I have them, and go from there, man.
Well, I would say that experiential learning
Yeah.
is it's not real. Yeah, you like you said before. I don't know if that's attainable in the classroom. That experiential learning is I think is the best, right? Like, as I plan on teaching in the future, man, I don't want to be stuck in a classroom all day.
Yeah.
How are we applying this information specifically if I'm teaching like a social work class? Social work is not always happening inside, right? There's aspects of it that, yes, you need to know. And there's, let's say you're going into a private practice and you need to learn these methodologies and these theories as, when you're talking to people. Yeah, that's all well and good. But if you don't know people, then the methodologies and the theories don't matter.
I mean, but you also got to look at it like this, Joe. Think about what you do, man, as a social worker.
Yeah.
Social worker. You also got to let your students know that the job isn't all, pretty. They got to see both sides of it. Like, it's easy, like, hey, a social worker without a master's degree is not going to make a lot of money.
Sure.
You need to know that, like you got to get the advanced degrees. That's number one. Number two, this job will weigh on you heavy.
Mm-hmm.
My wife, she actually went into that side of her field as a counselor.
Yeah.
For a while. And I remember, man, some of the stories, like her coming home so defeated, man, like kid dealing with things, man, that a kid should never have to deal with.
Absolutely. Yep.
And that's the one that gets you the most, man, is kids, like babies that didn't ask to be here, but think about it, man, like you can build passion for that. Like there's a field that's really jumping off right now. You should check it out, man. And that's music therapy.
Absolutely. Yeah.
It's a huge field right now, man. And there's a lot of great stuff being done in that field because we all have that one song we can identify with and where we heard it or how it affected us when we heard it in that particular situation.
Yeah.
And it's like, imagine being able to do that for a living. I get to listen to the song that I got married to. And like to this day, when I hear The Point of It All by Anthony Hamilton, I get like somewhat of a tear, man. A, because the song is beautiful, but B, that's the song that my wife walked down the aisle to.
Yeah.
And all my fraternity brothers laugh at me, like use me at my face as the Michael Jordan meme with the tears running down my face. Because I don't know if you've seen this picture. So like I get joked on by everybody because I cried like a baby at my wedding when she walked down the aisle, man. And I'm not at all ashamed of it.
Yeah.
I guess people thought I would be. I'm not at all. I think it's funny that people would think that, but that's a memory that I'll never forget, man. And so every time that song comes on the radio, hey, I listen to it all the way through, no matter what, and it brings a great experience. And when I hear the song Troy by Pete Rock and CL Smooth, I get both joy and pain from that because when my line brother Walt died, that song, I listened to that song on repeat nonstop
Yeah.
because it's always served that role in my life that when I'm down, that's the song I go to. So I literally just put the song on repeat, and I would sit in my room and cry, and this song would help me, man. So you can exude that same passion in your field, no matter what it is, as long as you're genuine,
Yeah.
as long as your students see that you truly love what you're doing, and you want to impart that same love to them. And
Sure.
when they see that, man, trust me, man, you can. I don't care if your major is being an auto mechanic,
Mhm.
you know. That would be, hey man, look at the end result of all this work I just did. I got a 1969 Chevy Camaro, which is my dream car, by the way. Sitting in the driveway. So yeah, man.
I mean, I've always thought this was the quality that stood out about you since I've known you is wearing your emotions on your sleeve,
Yeah,
not being afraid of what others might think. Because I think, and you could probably use the word vulnerable there, right?
yeah,
And I think as not only as men, but specifically as men of color,
yeah, yeah,
um, we're not. I don't know how often we're encouraged to explore those emotions. Not only explore them, but then process or grieve.
yeah,
And music has been, there's so many beautiful things about it, but that's one of them. And just helping you, it's a therapy.
yeah,
Like I don't know about you, but there's times where I'm like, man, I know I want to ball right now. Like I know I want to let some stuff out, but there's something holding it back.
yeah,
But there's plenty of music where I'm like, oh, there it is.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
Like, oh, thank like, and it feels so much better, and that's one of my focuses as the demographics that I want to work with. I want to work with all people, but specifically people who look like me.
yeah,
Because I think that for a really long time, and it continues, but it's getting better. It's
right,
getting a lot better. I think we're normalizing the conversation of like mental health
yep,
and acknowledging kind of like what is going on. Like, yeah, everything's not okay.
yeah,
Everyone is going through something. We don't
yep,
know, but it's important to talk about. And and creating barriers to that can be really harmful. So if you're going through something and you're like, well, I just want to go drink. Not saying anything's wrong with drinking, but when you're using that as the way to kind of
yeah,
suppress,
yeah,
can be problematic. Um, if you focus, well, I'm just going to work harder. Well, I don't know if working hard. Yeah, that's great. I don't mind. I don't think there's anything wrong with working hard. That's fine. But when you're using that to kind of neglect those feelings and those emotions,
yeah,
it can be problematic.
yep,
And you know that if you do over time, it's going to show. It's only a matter of time whether that expresses um, uh, physically, physiologically, right?
mm-hmm.
In your body when you're like, damn man, my back hurts or my neck hurts or like something hurts. You're like, yeah, man, or when you just can't, it's hard to have conversations and like you're starting to get rattled and like easy stuff, right? Like we're like, yeah, man, like maybe you should talk about what's going on with you.
My wife and I had a conversation recently, man, that goes perfectly with what you're talking about. I hate the expression, and I'm sure you've heard this before, man. I really can't take this expression. When Black people in particular say, I'm not my ancestors. Y'all ain't gonna do that to me. I cannot stand that phrase, bro. Because it's built out of ignorance. So many African Americans today, in particular, don't know how strong their ancestors actually really were.
Absolutely.
So you have a generation of people that was born into privilege. Yeah, we weren't born into white privilege, but we were definitely born into privilege.
Agree.
None of us none of us don't have a roof over our head or shoes on our feet and stuff like that. Even the poorest kid in America, you know, for the most part, has a pair of shoes or something like that.
Sure.
May not be the best, but there's something.
Right.
But it really bothers me, a generation of people that would neglect the history of their own people to say something like "I'm not my ancestors," or to look at the experiences that our ancestors dealt with. And that's not just Black people, that's Mexican Americans, that's everything, you know, having your land taken from you forcefully, you know, that, like, these things happen. And to hear people say that, which is based out of ignorance, it just really bothers me, man. Like, my whole life, you know, I'm a historian of music too, Joe. I study music history. It's very important to me. And when I teach it, I always start by saying music history is world history.
Absolutely.
You know, what's going on by Marvin Gaye is a part of music history because it was written at a time where, you know, African Americans were fighting for rights.
Mm-hmm.
I watched that movie, the new movie that talks about Sam Cooke, Malcolm X. I think it's Outside the Line, I think it's called, or something like that. And it was talking about how Sam Cooke was singing all this happy feeling music. And then he wrote, I Was Born by the Change Gonna Come.
Yeah.
To really express the feeling of what was going on in the movement at the time. Music history is world history. But we can't forget where we come from for the sake of trying to make ourselves feel better. You know, it's painful looking at our history and saying, you know, I'm supposed to, forgive, but, you know, not forget. I try to do that as much as I can, but, you know, being a student of history, man, it's just tough.
Yeah.
So yeah, I just think that, you know, something like that really goes along with what you were just saying.
Man, I think that there is so much there, right? I love music for that because it is, it can be so reflective of the time.
Yeah.
Right. And that's why I do think music is unique where it almost defies time.
Yeah.
It's like there's no such thing. It's like I'm going to a place.
Yep.
I'm going to a place, but I don't know about a time. When you think about, aside from the sounds that you're listening, you're like, what the hell was going on that caused someone to write this or to compose this? You're like, then you start diving deeper, and music for sure is, music for sure will kind of like clue you in on some of the sounds, right? The same way you were playing the piano, whether it's jazz or rock and roll, right?
Yeah.
Like, I think about punk rock, right? Punk rock is it's a very harsh sound, but think about what's going on at that time when punk rock is being created, right?
In Seattle, right.
You're like, oh, I get it, yeah. You start to get into like, man, all different types of music, and it's very reflective. I like that you mentioned this idea of like history and ancestry, because, man, if that isn't so important, if music hasn't been so transformational within communities of color, I mean, when you hear notes, I can't help but think some of those vibrations, like you're tapping into something, you're tapping into ancestry for sure. Like there's songs I hear and I go thousands of miles away. I'm like, that sound right there is ancestral.
Yep.
Right. That, you know what I mean? That little drum, right? Yep. That one right. Yep. That took me somewhere, and you cannot help it. Like there's a song that I've been listening to and trying to figure out how to mix it into some of my sets, but it uses, you hear that like, you hear like that Gregorian chant. And I'm just like, what? I don't know what this is, but it sounds good.
Yeah.
And there's something about this very old form of like music. I'm like, damn, this is strange, because it's like, I mean, there's the concept of community and people trying to like, it's a chant, right? Like, I'm like, damn, okay, this is doing something else. Like, what is this doing to me? Where do I feel it in my body?
So let's think about Gregorian chant. It's funny you bring that up, because that's an interesting idiosyncrasy in music in itself. Like, think about it like this: the Gregorian Chant was, Pope Gregory. We're talking about the Dark Ages, so you're dealing with like the plague and things like that. But it wasn't the Dark Ages. It was a plague happening in Europe.
Yes.
There was music going on everywhere.
Everywhere. Yeah. Totally.
So when this was happening in Europe, there was a golden age going on with the Mayans and all these different civilizations all around the world.
Sure.
But because everything in music has become so Eurocentric,
for sure,
we really forget about everything. Man, I watched a video, and a really cool video for your listeners to go listen to. On YouTube, there's a gentleman on there named Adam Neely. Adam Neely does a lot of music history work on YouTube, and it's really good.
Okay.
But he was talking about theory, but he was talking about it from the perspective of Indian music. So there's a huge argument going on in the music theory community right now about race and racism in music theory. But basically what he was saying with his argument is, because everything is so Eurocentric, we as studiers of music history here in America have missed out on so many different forms and styles of music out there that we just are clueless to, that it's really been a disservice as far as getting a music education. And he goes through talking about all these different forms of music. So, it's one of those situations like it goes back to what I was saying earlier. You as a studier or a lover or of anything, I don't care what it is. If you love cars, you need to go back and look at the history of cars. You need to know what a steam engine is. You need to know, what about early electric engines that people think that just happened a couple of years ago that have actually been around since the late 1800s, early 1900s. So you got all these different things. You have to put more effort into being a student of what you love.
Sure.
And that's everything in your life, man. If you want to be great at being a husband, then you need to put work into being a great husband. Sure. You need to know what your significant other likes and what type of, things make him or her happy, whatever that may be.
Yeah.
And, and I think it also touches on what you were saying, Joe, the emotional side, man.
Yeah.
I never knew that I would cry on a piece of music. I was like, man, I don't see how people do that. They hear a piece and they shed a tear. And then it's two pieces of music, Joe, classical music, that I heard for the first time and made me bawl like a baby. Because A, I knew the significance of the piece, and then B, the piece was so beautiful that I couldn't contain it. And that one of them is called Pavane pour une infinité de Font, or Pavane for a Dead Princess by Ravel. And to this day, Ravel is my favorite composer. Okay. I say that, people are like, really? Well, yeah. That piece is gorgeous, man. It's called Pavane for a Dead Princess. It's a song about a princess that died early. Gotcha. And that thought of death and that thought of loss, man. And it just really touched me, man. And they both pieces are about death, actually. And the other one is Brahms Requiem.
Okay. Yep.
Brahms. When I was in college, I hated Brahms, man. I just thought his music was so boring. I just hated it.
Yeah.
And my music history teacher, Dr. Dorsey, shout out to Dr. Dorsey. I still love you, man, my guy. Dr. Dorsey really turned me on to a lot of things. And he's the one that really put that love of music history in me, like we were talking about earlier.
Yeah.
He was like, Rick, you need to go check out this piece called Brahms Requiem. So I went, I literally just put everything away. I have a pretty nice sound system. I just played Brahms Requiem from the beginning to the end. The piece is about an hour long.
Okay.
To this day, man, I listen, like, that piece is just gorgeous, man. Like, it just is. And that one wasn't a tear of like, I'm sad, like it was, and just beauty. It was just a tear of appreciation. Like, man, this is just insanely good music that came out of the pen of a person sitting at home pondering his own death.
Yeah.
This is what I want my death to sound like.
Yeah.
I heard this piece called In Paradisum. Dr. Haywood did it with the NSU choir. And in the middle of that piece, the piece is about taking a walk around here in paradise, is what In Paradisum means.
Mm-hmm.
So taking a walk around heaven. And in the middle of the piece, there's this section that's literally just angelic voices.
Mm,
So you hear all this ambience going on, like different sounds.
yeah.
In this section will get a little louder, and then this section will get a little louder, and he's conducting, doing all these great things. And it's just, that's the third time I ever cried on music. Like
Yeah.
all these experiences that I had, I'm this big hard man, I'm supposed to be, never cry. Men don't cry and all. Men don't ask for help. Yeah, right. Whatever.
Right.
But
Lies.
right, exactly. And being, like you said, so vulnerable, man, in that moment.
Mm.
And I got to hear that live too, by the way. Dr. Hayward did it live at Norfolk State. And it's so much, bro. I have never bought a CD from a choir of a university except for that one CD. I own that CD.
Damn.
Yeah, bro. I loved it that much that I went and bought the CD that Dr. Hayward recorded. He did a tour with it, and it was incredible. As a matter of fact, I need to let him know how much I really appreciated that. But
So I'm thinking what we should do is have a podcast with you and him.
that would be awesome, man.
I think that'd be phenomenal.
Yeah.
I mean, I've heard, I've had, I think people speak so much about him.
Yeah.
I don't know how many people actually get to talk to him in length.
Yeah.
About his craft, right? Yeah, immediately when you said that, I was like, yeah, I think it'd be dope to have both of you on, and not only because of our, our fraternal connection, but that would be an interesting kind of conversation to have the creator and then the listener
Yeah.
say exactly what happened, right? Like what that music did for you, and maybe even understand a little bit more about where he was and like what was going on that caused him to create this.
So he didn't actually compose the piece.
Oh, he didn't compose it. Okay.
So he didn't compose the piece, but he's the first person that I've ever heard do the piece.
Ah, okay.
So it's one of those situations, man, where it's like, music is one of those things, man, especially when you're teaching music and want to perform certain pieces.
Sure.
It's the same thing you were just talking about. Where were you when you heard this piece and like, I'm going to do that piece with my choir?
Mm-hmm.
There's a piece called This Cruel Moon by John Mackey, who's a very famous wind ensemble conductor now. And This Cruel Moon, what he did was he wrote this large piece called Wine Dark Sea.
Okay.
And Wine Dark Sea has 3 movements, and the second movement is a ballad.
Hmm.
And he took that ballad and made it a piece on its own, and it's called This Cruel Moon. And man, you want to talk about pretty, man? Like, oh my gosh, man! Like, there's certain pieces that stick out to me, like from I'm a chords guy. I like chords, and some pieces just in my mind stick out as just like being above the rest when it comes to like harmony and sound.
Yeah.
And that's one of them. And I think that's probably the type of experience he may have had. I would love to hear, like you said, bro, him explain what he was thinking and doing when he found that piece. It's incredible. Guys, if you want to check it out, In Paradisum. It's beautiful. Joe, I'll send it to you, man, so you can check it out, man.
Please do. I think that'd be phenomenal. I think that'd be absolutely phenomenal to hear. And it's also like, I think that's a kind of cool thing, right? Like, he wasn't the creator, and I'm glad you corrected me on that. But you can put your influence on the piece, right? Like, one of the things that I heard from this DJ was, he's like, how he rates a good DJ by going and listening to a DJ, hearing the song maybe that he made, but the DJ played it differently. Like, I've never heard that before. Like, I've never heard that in my song played that way. And that's so fascinating to me, because I'm like, for sure, I'm in countless hours of listening to music and DJing and trying to put things together. I've played the exact same song that I've heard DJs play, and I'm like, I did not sound like that.
Yeah. right.
Not sound like that, whether it was, they had, whether it was pitch or tempo, their levels, what other sound they had playing. I'm just like, that did not sound like that. So I think Yeah, I think I'm I'm fascinated with that concept of just being able to manipulate music and play it different ways, even though you didn't create it.
But then there's like the frustrating side where somebody's so damn good, man. Like it's just frustrating. Like, golly, man, why can't I be as good as this
Why
person? Like,
can't it be as good as you?
I listen to every time I listen to Jacob Collier. Have you ever listened to Jacob Collier's music before, man? Man, it's a must. You check this guy out, man. This guy is a musical genius, man. Like literally, the kid's in his 20s. He's in his early 20s.
Okay.
Matter of fact, I got an opportunity to be on a Zoom call with him about a month ago.
Okay.
The kid's a musical genius, man. He's won like 3 Grammys. He's only like 23 or 24 years old.
Okay.
He's been doing this since he was a teenager, but his concepts and his grasp of music theory and his knowledge of it, man. I'm like, I've been in college. I've been teaching for 15 years now. I've done all these things. I'm working on a doctorate degree, and this guy is 24 years old, and he knows way more than I'll ever know about chords and stuff like that. And it's like appreciation because of how damn good he is, and then like frustrated, like, man, why can't I be that good?
That's great that you're able to admit that, though, that like this younger person is just so talented. You're like, damn, how do I get there? But,
And that just happened this week too, bro. I hadn't played in a while, man. Like you said, COVID really affected me in a lot of ways, man. Like it took a lot of things away from me that I shouldn't have let it, but I was so in a bad mental space that I just let it, man. Like, so I hadn't been on my trumpet since probably about April.
okay.
I hadn't played my trumpet, man. I composed, arranged a piece for a group that I teach, and then I played on that piece, and that was the last time I had touched my trumpet because I was just all over the place mentally, man. So long story short, last week I put my schedule together for this semester to make sure I'm nice and organized, and I was like, you know what? I'm going to start focusing on me again.
Yeah.
So I started working out again, and I want to play trumpet. So I was like, I'm going to play the trumpet every day but Wednesday. I'm going to take a break on Wednesday.
Yeah.
And my first day back on the horn, one of my students that I taught when he was in undergrad, I was able to convince him to apply for the doctoral program here at UConn. He got accepted.
Oh, great.
Trumpet player. So he's actually one of my former students is now my student again. But I took a lesson from him, a person that I taught. I took a lesson from this past week because my pride will never get in the way of me wanting to achieve my goals. Yeah. So I can learn from my students and be perfectly fine with it. And literally, man, that experience helped me get right back on track. Look, my wife yells at me because my trumpets are sitting on the table. I've been playing like every day. So like, yeah, man, like taking a lesson from one of my former students put me back on track. Yeah. So I guess the lesson there is never be too prideful to admit that anyone can help you, man, and you can learn in any situation, man.
Yeah.
Because once we do that, man, I'll tell you, man, it really opens life up to a lot of great things that you'll experience when you allow yourself to.
Yeah. You're breaking down this traditional hierarchical way of teaching.
Yeah.
Which I don't like to speak definitively too many times, but that shit hasn't worked.
Yeah. Yeah.
This, again, we go back to that our early education experience.
Yep.
I hold the power because I'm the teacher and you need this grade in order to move past this class. And that doesn't make people want to learn. That also doesn't develop the teacher in their approach, right? Mm-hmm. Every student is different, and teachers have to adapt. You got to do that, and you got to do that on the fly. I mean, obviously you have to prepare and you need to plan, and that's absolutely essential to be a great teacher. Yep. But you got to be able to throw your plan out of the window.
And then not only that, Joe, your students aren't you.
Aren't you, right?
my friend Julian, my best friend Julian, he hit me to something 2 weeks ago, bro. They was that powerful. I can remember when he told me. He was like, bro, imagine how many kids' dreams have been killed by an ineffective teacher. There's a study in education that says if you have 1 year of a bad teacher, it takes 3 to 4 years to rebound from that bad teacher.
Sure.
If you have 2 years in a row of a bad teacher, it is next to impossible
Mm.
rebound.
Mm.
Imagine how many kids' dreams have been killed because they had a ineffective teacher that couldn't teach the things that they wanted to learn.
Yeah.
So instead of admitting that to themselves and putting their pride aside, they killed the kid's dream. Oh, that's crap. You need to learn this.
Yeah.
Music theory. Oh, you gotta study Mozart, Bach, and Beethoven in order to be considered a great music theorist.
Yeah.
And clearly, Duke Ellington is just as influential to music as those other composers are.
Mm.
And a lot of the things we do today wouldn't exist if it wasn't for people like Louis Armstrong. Louis Armstrong created American singing, all the runs and all that stuff. He created that, man. But, he on the hierarchy of musical greats, he's probably somewhere down in the middle somewhere.
Mm.
We're quick to throw Beethoven out there.
Yeah.
But, look at, what's his name? Nora Jones' dad, Ravi Shankar.
Mm-hmm.
How many people would know about sitar music and Indian music in America if it wasn't for, him exposing, like on the Beatles albums and stuff like that. Like there's so many things in the world, man, that we won't allow ourselves to be exposed to because our pride gets in the way. And I made a pact with myself, Joe, that I will never let my ego keep me from gaining knowledge and becoming a better person. And serving the lives of people. And I've always been that way, man. I thank the good Lord, man, that he put that in my spirit. Like, I want to help people. I want to be a servant to all mankind. Like, that's my motto,
Yeah.
What can I do to be a friend? What can I do to help? What can I do to assist? And then the second part is, what can I do to create a legacy so that my niece and my nephew, and when I have kids, my kids can take our family tradition to the next level and create a family of doctors instead of a family, that struggles with, whatever those vices may be.
Absolutely. Well, dude, I could do this for hours. We could probably
Right.
I got to go get a COVID test before I leave for Jamaica on the 23rd.
You going to the Jamaica homecoming?
No, I'm going to. We got to talk more about this. I was.
Yeah, they're doing a homecoming in Jamaica, man.
Yeah. No, I didn't know. I had no idea. I'm going. I'm leaving the 23rd, and I'll be there for at least 2 months. I'm gonna finish this semester. I'm gonna finish the semester in a little bit of peace and tranquility.
Yeah, bro.
Really, kind of, not only have a different physical environment, but I'm a huge water person, love swimming.
Yeah.
As you talk about not picking up your trumpet, I've been able to swim.
Yeah. I remember you being a big swimmer, man, from school. I remember that.
Yeah. And so, I need to get back to swimming every day because that's what kind of, it's like water.
Yeah.
It's water. Without it, I'm not myself.
Yeah.
And so, I'll be out there for 2 months at least, and then I want to try to hit maybe another island while I finish school and work. And it's not going to be vacation because I'll definitely be working and doing my internship and still supporting people virtually. But waking up and seeing clear blue water, and I think it'll really help my it's spiritual health, mental health, everything. Everything. Just kind of get back to feeling myself. So I'm in Roanoke, Virginia now, and there's the fraternity is doing COVID testing.
Okay.
Not too far. So I was like, well, let me go let me go get this COVID test so I could show, the necessary folks that that I'm good to go.
You be safe out there too, man. It's with everything that's going on right now, just be safe, bro.
Yeah.
Especially this week.
Boy. Wait. Somebody had to.
Whole another podcast.
Another podcast. Yeah. Somebody kind of like clued me in on that. They were like, what if there was no in and out flights? I'm like, shit, man. I don't think it's going to happen, but yeah, that's a reality. Who knows what the fuck is gonna happen?
Exactly.
But before we conclude here, I ask every guest, last question, and that is something. What is something you're in love with, or something that you love?
Hmm.
Take your time, no rush.
I am in love with Black excellence.
Hmm.
I'm in love with the fact that our people have always been resilient no matter what the situation that we are put in.
Hmm.
I'm in love with that. I think that that's something that we can all aspire to be better at sometimes, but I think it's a characteristic of being a Black person that's super important. Being able that knowing where you come from and being able to succeed in spite of.
Mm-hmm.
I love my wife. I love music. I love my family. I love my fraternity brothers. I love, I just love being alive. I love being who God made me out to be. I love the product that I've become throughout all the hardships and heartaches and pain I've dealt with in my life. I love that I can still smile.
Yep.
I can still be happy, still have great friends, and still just be who I am, man, on a regular basis. And that's, unaffected by negativity of others. So, yeah.
Couldn't have said it better, man. All right, well, I'm gonna set up. We'll set up this time. I definitely want to see if Dr. Haywood would be open to doing another podcast with us. That'd be pretty dope.
Yeah, and I'm going to send you that piece, man.
Yeah, please, man. Look, dude. Anything that is making you cry or anything that comes up, but send. Just,
Well, Joe. Cool, man.
cool, man. Well, yeah, dude. Have a good rest of your day, and yeah, we'll talk soon.
All right, Doc.